Hey, ski moms, it might be spring, but we're still chasing adventure. From muddy hikes to breezy bike rides and everything in between. And we've got the perfect gear companion, Skida. We love this Vermont-based brand for their bright, fun prints and performance-ready hats that keep up with our family adventures. Whether you're cheering on a lacrosse game or sneaking in a solo trail run, Skida's lightweight beanies, headbands, and neckwear are just the thing. And be sure to check out the newest style, the nylon patch cap. It's got a deeper crown, a wider size range, and just the right amount of mom-approved style. Topped with Skida's signature snowflake logo and bold prints, this cap adds a pop of personality while keeping things classic. Skida's mountain-tested and totally adorable. Bonus, they make the perfect gift for your favorite ski mom. Head to skida.com and use our exclusive code SKIMOMSDAY25 for 25% off, just in time for Mother's Day.
Welcome to Season 4 of the Ski Moms Podcast. We're your hosts, Nicole and Sarah.
Today, the Ski Moms are super excited to talk with Sascha Meyer, the Chief Experience Officer and co-founder of Mamava Incorporated. We're going to talk more about that and what it is. And it is dovetailing with one of my favorite topics, which is getting more families out to the mountains and experiencing mountains in a way that is supportive to the lifestyle we all love and believe in. So welcome, Sascha, and thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about the snow sports and breastfeeding and how those two intersect.
And you know what? I have a feeling that this is going to be one of the few podcasts out there about skiing that talk about those two things. So we are here for it. But we always love to start with an origin story. Some people come to snow sports later in life. For some of them, it was passed down in family generation by generation. So tell us your origin story.
Sure. So I actually grew up in Ohio, in southeastern Ohio. So did not have the opportunity to really get into snow sports until I went to the University of Vermont and was introduced to snowboarding through friends. And then I really got into it when I went to work for a design studio whose key account was Burton Snowboards. So everybody, very luckily, who worked on that account got a full setup every year. This is the olden days, including boards and a ski pass to Stowe. And so my friends at the design studio taught me to ride. And, you know, we were fully embedded in that snowboarding culture. And that was sort of the hottest time, 1993, 94, 95, getting into it then. And so that was the opportunity. And there are key factors that inspired Mamava, which is my company that makes lactation suites, that came out of the design business that we did with Burton Snowboards, which I can share as well.
So it was not passed down family by family. You know, we love learners that come to it independently, and we need to study them and we need to figure out like how to make that magic happen in more places, because not everybody can go work for Burton.
Right. I did marry a skier. So I married a Vermonter and raised two sons. My oldest son now just graduated from college, and he has a job in the ski industry. He actually works for Killington Resort. And he went into a program at the Vermont State University that is resort and hospitality. You get a Bachelor in Science degree in 3 years, and you are based at Killington. So you do co-ops on the mountain, and that can be everything from working in the marketing department to repairing the lifts and learning how to weld in the summer. But this is a kid who loved being outside and on the mountain from when he was about 2.5 years old and kind of never stopped. And so my authenticity, my credibility really probably comes mostly from him and my husband.
So what is your home mountain nowadays?
So I think for loyalty, would have to say Killington, just because that is where we are most often going and where Cal, my son, gets in probably 200 some odd days a year, believe it or not. And as I said, Stowe, because it's the closest to us and or big mountain to us. And because that's kind of Burton's home mountain. I have a lot of fondness for that spot.
And I love your career really, it seems to really dovetail where design and innovation live. Tell us what you studied and how you got to that point. And maybe you can describe it a little bit better. It's almost like, a design think tank is what you've been doing over the years.
Sure. Actually, I studied at the University of Vermont. I studied sociology. And I think that did really very much play into my role as a brand strategist at the design studio. So that's understanding people's connections to experiences and to products and to design, and kind of working on the front end in terms of extracting that information and telling stories from it for brands. So my experience with starting the company, the Lactation pod company, was often going to see clients wanting to breastfeed and not having a place to do that, and creating a solution by incubating it within the design studio that could be a design for breastfeeding, or more likely for me, pumping. And then putting that into the world first in public places like airports and convention centers, and then realizing that it was a solution that was needed everywhere. We have lactation pods in ski resorts. We have them at Stowe, actually, so it's another reason for my fondness there. I believe, are putting one into the new resort in Killington. We have them in Montana at the Bridger Bowl. So really, the connection back to actually snowboarding and the pods were that the snowboards were like a canvas where we could put amazing graphics on both sides of them, and like year over year kind of inspire those first young riders and now older riders to have this beautiful piece of art that could be an expression of their way of being on the mountain. And with the lactation pods, we actually saw those as a canvas to share the story and communicate that, oh, yeah, this fundamental thing that supports human life in breastfeeding has been sort of under-designed for. And we wanted them to stand out. So putting graphics in the same way we put graphics on snowboards, putting them on the lactation suites was a way to start and have this ongoing conversation about a cultural moment or a cultural thing that happens and maybe had not been so much in the conversation. So that is kind of the dotted line, which people maybe wouldn't expect from working in the snow sports industry to actually making lactation pods, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, and I've seen them at Stowe, and I just saw one at an airport this past weekend. Maybe it was JFK, I'm not sure, but I always point them out to my daughters. They're beautiful from the outside. Can you describe what it looks like to those of us that haven't seen one? And I want to know what's inside because I've never gotten to peek in.
Oh, sure. So, yeah, very deliberately, they have this contemporary design. The ones in public have these curved walls, and they are sort of an expression of like optimism. We love curves in terms of humans and how we respond to them. They're bodacious is the word I like to use. And then parents can find them on our mobile app. They enter using the mobile app because it has a smart lock. It's totally free to use, but it provides a little bit of security in those public locations. So not everybody is going to just want to go in and, charge their phone. But then once you're in, they have seating. There's a place to hang your coat. You can plug in and charge your phone. You can plug in your breast pump. They have a mirror. So, often you're like disrobing if you are pumping or if you are breastfeeding. So you can put yourself back together. And they create sort of a still oasis for that pumping or breastfeeding mom. My experience was if I wasn't pumping, which, usually if I was pumping, unfortunately back then, 20 years ago, it was like in a restroom to do that privately. But my experience with my two sons was my second son was really distracted. So I'm from Vermont. I would breastfeed anywhere. But it was the baby who needed that space to not be distracted, especially in these busy environments. So really designed with both mother for pumping or breastfeeding and for baby in mind.
Mother's Day is just around the corner, and if the mom in your life loves to play outside, on the slopes or on the trail, we've got you covered. The Ski Mom's Mother's Day gift guide is live. We've rounded up our favorite picks for adventurous outdoorsy moms. From gear that goes the distance to wellness treats she'll actually use. Whether you're shopping for your own mom, dropping hints for yourself, or treating a ski buddy, you'll find thoughtful, mom-approved gifts at every price point. Check out the full guide at skimom.substack.com or head to theskimoms.co/gift guides, because the best gifts say, go play, I've got this. Yeah, and if for anybody who's tried to pump in a small space before, there is some equipment involved. And once you've pumped that milk, it is like liquid gold. You don't want to spill any of it. You want to keep it clean. You want to make sure you're preserving all of it. So, to your point, nobody should be embarrassed about breastfeeding. And that we're not saying like women need to go behind closed doors. It is more for the comfort of mom and the convenience of it and baby. I am so body positive. I'm there for it. But a crowded Killington Lodge on a Saturday is just not conducive to anybody's mental health, number one, but also to the feeding process, no matter what it looks like, either pumping or breastfeeding.
Yeah, and we say that having a lactation pod that kind of stands out, or having lactation rooms, we celebrate any solution there. It's an expression of the values of the place, right? And it says, oh, all sorts of families are welcome here. The next generation of skiers and riders is going to be brought up here. And I think we all know that experience of being at the resort and trading off the baby, right? So, okay, I'm going to take a couple runs and you're going to hold the baby and I'm going to have the older kids, and then I'll come into the lodge and you're going to take another run. And that sort of handoff, I think, is something that ski families definitely all are familiar with. And you're kind of, that negotiation's happening with all sorts of parenting, but it's very sharp at that ski lodge, especially if both folks want to be on the mountain and it's a great powder day or something. So,
and we did survey, and we found that the majority of moms, more than half, said that they had struggled to find a quiet, clean spot in order to breastfeed. So, there are plenty of moms going to the mountain who are breastfeeding. And while the mountains, may not recognize this, we need to keep raising this point. And, if women have multiple kids, we don't want them taking 6-8 years off from the mountain life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would love to see that survey. I don't know if you have that to share, but that would be super helpful for us as we do some conversations with these folks. And yeah, and you think about the complexities of what you're wearing in a resort, even to disrobe, and either if it's getting a pump on your body or to actually breastfeed, way more awkward than, let's say, you can put a shawl over yourself or find a spot in the summer months to sit down and breastfeed someplace.
And how much would a resort be investing? How much is a pod? How much do they need to add to their budget to handle this?
Yeah, good question. They range, from 10,000 all the way up, if you have all the bells and whistles and service plans and so on, to like 25,000. So it's relatively nominal and a way easier solution than building a room oftentimes is. And kind of, we've thought of everything, right? So designed more like for food preparation, very easy to clean. The seating's all integrated. The plugs are at a proper location. The table is at a proper location if you're using a breast pump. So you don't have to sort of navigate, like, what does it mean to build a space for lactation? Because we've kind of figured all of that out for you.
And is there a way for us to find out where they're located before we head out to the mountains or airports?
Good question. Yeah. So the mobile app has not only our public pods, but about 4,000 other lactation rooms for all across the country. We have a few in Canada. So that's that tool that we want to have in all parents who intend to breastfeed's pocket. So they're exactly kind of navigating their days. And it includes, we're in museums and some retail environments and zoos and, as I said, ski resorts. So the Mamava app is a really, really important tool for breastfeeding parents.
And when you were talking with Stowe about getting this installed and getting it set up, did they find you or did you find them? Are mountains starting to become aware that half of the population is female and many of us decide to have kids?
Yeah, I think Stowe was mutual. So that was our home mountain. So we were kind of like, ringing the doorbell and saying, hey, and we also, every year at Mamava is a baby boom. So we have, folks who are actually on the mountain who are breastfeeding. And then Bridger Bowl would be an example of they found us. But we do hear that it is the families themselves that actually help create momentum around solving this problem. Again, whether that's putting a lactation space together or putting a Mamava pod in. Usually there's that long tail to a squeaky customer or resort guest that is actually making change in that way. And that goes across all of the kind of companies and locations we work with. There's usually a lactivist that says, this is not, okay. In places like airports and for employers, it is now the law across the board that you have to have lactation accommodations and break time for breastfeeding. So it's not only about the guest experience, it is often very much about the employees of a location or resort in this case that also are have the need and now have the rights under legislation to have a place that isn't a restroom to use their breast pumps.
And that seems to go hand in hand with the childcare issues that we're seeing at a lot of mountain resorts. We think about it when it's Sarah and I talking about it. We think about, when we were visiting with our little ones, we wanted to ski, trying to solve that particular problem. And then we remember, oh my gosh, if we want to get more women in this industry, you've got to provide childcare for them and men now. I know that there's plenty of men who are working on mountains who use their mountain childcare. Steamboat made a huge investment. And the folks that are using that childcare, it's not always like the mom that's attached to Steamboat, it's the dad that's attached. So, these conversations about keeping families seen and happy are really important for our industry, the health not only for the paying customers, but their employees as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about, what we do at Mamava as infrastructure for breastfeeding and support. The support comes in some of the things that we provide employers, some of the features on the app that go beyond just search. But you need this other infrastructure of care. And that's what, we talk about at Mamava, and absolutely childcare, parental leave, all those things are key factors.
Oh, and one last question. I'm already trying to figure out where I would put a pod at Sugarbush, my home mountain. How much square footage do you need? What is the physical dimension of it? I'm thinking right now, like which base area could accommodate it?
Yeah, so we have a small one that's like a 4x4, and then it goes up from there. And it's bad that I don't have that actual dimension in my head. You can find it on the website. So we have, over the years, in the beginning, the shape was very important. The curved gesture, it stood out to have that conversation. Over the years, now that people understand what a lactation pod is or what the importance of a lactation room is, we've designed more like rectangular units that actually fit into more discreetly into different areas. So we have 3 different sizes and they kind of can fit anywhere. That middle size probably would be the one, thinking of the various lodges at Sugarbush, that could fit quite well in. It has sort of an oak texture too, or graphic. It doesn't have the big graphics on the front. It's sort of more demure and meant to kind of fit into different spaces more easily.
And can it be moved around? Like what does it need from a infrastructure? Power? Does it need water?
No, standard outlet. Water is not a part of these. One, to make them accessible to placement anywhere. If you have to be connected to plumbing, that's a whole nother beast. So washing pump parts and cleaning up really has to happen in the bathroom. And we do have things like wipes and things like that for cleaning up the pumping experience. Standard outlet, and yeah, they're designed to go up and down really easily. and they have a caster system. So if you have the thresholds in the space, you can actually deploy the casters and roll them around quite easily. So that flexibility is a big factor, particularly in places like convention centers where you're kind of migrating, or campuses. You're kind of migrating to the need of the user versus the convenience of the facility. And we've done that a lot as well in private businesses. One of our biggest channels is warehousing and manufacturing. And these facilities where, many, many women work can be, 4 football fields large. And we can actually place them in proximity to the breastfeeding parent versus having those folks kind of navigate like, oh my God, I take my break and I have to do this and find my pump and come to this location. So that's a very deliberate part of the solve.
I just watched Nomadland and, I was looking at some of those work environments, and that would be so amazing if you could, let your leader know that, okay, I'm going to need the pod starting, in this particular month. That is amazing that they're that portable.
We are in that literal environment.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah, it feels good.
Well, it sounds like you are changing the world quite literally, one pod at a time. So thank you for your service to all moms out there. But let's talk a little bit about how you recharge now, because you've got this big job and you've got lofty goals. How are you making time to enjoy Vermont? I mean, if we're going to live here, we've got to play outdoors. That's the way I feel.
Absolutely. So in the winter right now, it is really cross-country skiing. So it's the bang for your buck. You can do it out your backyard if there's snow. You actually get the exercise. To be honest with you, I think learning how to ride kind of as a young person, but older in life, I never really pushed it that far. I was a bit of a lazy, like, go with the flow rider versus really, pushing myself and getting that good workout. So cross-country skiing is where I really in the winter like to spend my time, and it is the most efficient way to also have that zen. I think for me, it's sort of ticks all of those boxes of exercise and quiet and accessibility and nature. So that really recharges me. And in the summer, I'm a gardener. I have chickens, even though I live in inner suburbia. So those chickens give me a lot of pleasure, and my garden gives me a lot of pleasure, and that's kind of how I reset and rebalance. And that's fun because, again, you can often I'm working from home, and I can take that break and you can go harvest a couple strawberries and cook an egg from the coop. So feel lucky there. Love Vermont for all those reasons.
Absolutely. And I think you said you have 2 boys. So how old are they, and are they skiing with you?
Although my oldest was on the cross country team, he was a great starter, but I think he was really made for downhill. So my youngest doesn't really ski anymore. He did when we all went when he was young, and my oldest is in the industry now. He just got a job. He graduated from that resort ski with a degree in resort management, the State University of Vermont, and now he's working for Killington. So now we have the hookup too, right? So we can go and visit him, and unfortunately, he is always working on weekends and holidays. So that is just a bit of the trade-off as we think about family excursions, is that, can't do it at Thanksgiving because the World Cup's there, and can't do it at Christmas because, he's super busy, but we're really proud of him. And it's fun to have someone who's found that path from a very early age. And we feel lucky about that for sure.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty awesome program that he's in with all those different rotations and exposure to so much. I think I would like that.
Yeah, Killington does a great job with so many things that involve the community. I've watched them with they're expanding their base area or trying to build a new base area. And I've seen all the things going to public comment. It doesn't seem like they're hiding it. I know some resorts, when they're trying to grow, it's like surprise. It's, it's when those planning meetings are popping up. I guess you can't do that in Vermont, but they seem to be a real partner with the community.
It definitely feels that way. And the tenure of many of the people in management there, maybe that is usual, but, decades long of folks who came up at Killington and now are in leadership, and just super impressive. And the way that they have integrated this program with the university is also just super cool. Super cool opportunity.
And Killington also does a great job with employing people 365 days a year because they have such a vibrant mountain biking and summer resort business, which is great. And they do offer a pass called Killington 365 that you get skiing and mountain biking on the pass. And I know with a lot of towns, they struggle because it's so seasonal, the business. Everybody floods in the winter. And Killington has done a really great job about making it a 4-season experience there.
Yeah, and as I understand, like the golfing is quite accessible up there as well. So my son is golfing in the summer, with his job with the resort. And it seems like I totally agree, has done a really good job of being community oriented. And I've been really impressed. Having not spent that much time until the last 3 years, I've been really impressed with what Killington has turned into, for sure.
And for folks that don't know much about it, Killington they host a very early World Cup event. So they've become master snow farmers. They start blowing snow, I think, in October to get ready for this event at the end of November. And they also stay open. They usually try to stay open till June, mid-June. And I think they pretty much can pull it off every year because they've banked so much snow. It's a ribbon at the end, let's be honest. And
Absolutely.
you've got to, it's an experience to get up there, but you can still ski in June. So, they are giving the community almost 7-8 months of skiing, on either shoulder of that season. It's more for visuals than it is for great amounts of turns, but they do a great job.
Yeah, my son's graduation was June 1st. That was actually the last day. I think we had some hot weather. So the kids graduated with the mountain behind them and you could see the skiers coming down. It was quite just the ribbon. I also noticed while I was there, they have camping. So for the folks who are mountain biking, and I think making that really accessible. They have a location with camping and some porta potties, like right on the mountain in some upper parking areas, which I just thought was cool. You're coming up and you're a young person with not a ton of financial resources, to make that accessible, I think is really, really smart.
Yeah, and I think Killington's just it's big, but it's easy in the sense that it's that one access road, plenty of hotels, plenty of restaurants. I mean, some of these smaller resorts in Vermont, we find these restaurants that are open one day a week for 3 hours or something. And you're not going to find that at Killington. You're going to find so many great food options and plenty of hotels and condos. And I think it makes it accessible on that, on that front as well.
Absolutely. Yes. Easy to get in and out. You don't have that traffic jam that you sometimes find at other places.
Well, speaking of ease of use, I don't think Vermont has a reputation for being a startup hub. I think from the outsider, Vermont tends to be looked at as a state that older people live here, that it's more of like a retirement home for, New Englanders. We have some second home owners here. But let's dispel some of this. You have a startup that launched in Vermont. What were some of the pluses of starting it here and maybe some of the challenges along the way?
Yeah, I think that we have just a great tradition of independent-minded kind of businesses and progressive-minded. And I think of Burton Snowboards, I think of Seventh Generation, Gardner Supply, King Arthur Flour, that have this value set of what it means to be a community oriented, sort of progressive solutions. And the kind of template they set as far as inspiration, like our very first pods, how they actually went into the airports was we convinced Seventh Generation to give us the money and put graphics around them. And then we convinced the airport to receive them. So it was a way to pilot and test the concept that, these things were expensive to build and we couldn't afford, but they validated us because they were a well-known brand. And also they loved the idea of getting amazing PR by being the first. So that's an example of those progressive brands, but also the smallness and the power of small to be connected to those organizations and to our politicians, frankly. a lot of work we do on the advocacy side. We are connected with Senator Welch and Senator Sanders, like literally. I can call Peter Welch and say like, "Hey, can you get us a meeting with an architect of the Capitol?" And he can't, right? So that is a part of the power of Vermont's smallness. And the challenges are, one, it's expensive to live here. It's expensive to, housing is a challenge for my young colleagues. And it's also a little bit removed. So getting here or getting to our accounts in, especially the West Coast is expensive and time consuming. So that's a little bit of the downside, but also there's a upside to that downside in that it's not busy and it's beautiful, and there's a lot of the remoteness, which actually obviously works for us.
And yeah, there's not too many direct flights out of Burlington, as we know. Takes a little longer to get anywhere. But tell us about the makeup of your company in terms of the number of people and the different roles that you have them staffed in.
Sure. We are about 55 people. We actually are based in Burlington on the corporate side, but 20 of our employees are in Springfield, Vermont, where we very proudly actually own our own manufacturing and make our pods in Vermont as well. So the reason for that is that it's a sort of manufacturing hub. In 2021, we bought our manufacturer out. We had a contract manufacturer. We said, you know what? You're only making our pods. How about we actually just take over? And we're able to employ that amazing staff and kind of streamline the business to suit us. And so that's a huge point of pride for Christine, who is my co-founder, and she really operates the manufacturing side of the business to actually be, employing in a different part of the state that needs jobs, and to be manufacturing something in a world where so much is based on tech and so on feels really great. We are pretty much majority female, as you might expect, but I haven't done the numbers lately, but the vast majority of our colleagues are female, but they range in age from like 22 to 75. So that's also a point of pride to have such a demographic, inclusive demographic. So we're excited about that. We'd like to share that.
I'm definitely hopeful about the males who are millennial and Gen Z. I have had some meetings with Sarah where we're talking about how important our ski group is to the overall health of the ski community. And, the guys who are maybe 50 plus, they just kind of glaze over. They're like, yeah, let's high-speed lifts. That's the answer. We just need to move people up the mountain faster. And Sarah and I are, talking about the experience of being a mom and, bringing all of the gear and the stuff and making sure the sizing's right and you got the snacks. And there are these boys and they're like, I remember these young 20 and 30-year-old men who remember all the work that their mom did and bringing them to the mountain, and she had other things to do and they made it happen. But you do see this like light bulb go off and they get it. And we're working with a few of them. So I am hopeful for this next generation of, feminist men who really want, that for their families. They want their partner to be able to ski with them. They want this mountain life that, isn't what the picture we're selling a lot of families looks like. So I'm hopeful about that.
Yeah. My experiences with Vermont dads, my actual CFO is a father of 5. I always lose count. I'm like, is it 5? And he's been with us for a very long time, and he's amazing. His oldest is like 12, and his youngest is under 1. And my experience is that absolutely they are participating, doing the pickups, doing the drop-offs. My own husband is actually a middle school teacher, and I was an entrepreneur, so he actually fully owned that end of the family operations. And I'm not sure if that is true everywhere, but in terms of all my other colleagues too, most of whom are fathers, they also are, equal, if not more, in terms of supporting the family and the ski experience, especially.
Yeah, we're hopeful about that. And I think that making these pods attractive and notable is really important. They're not hidden. So when you are walking through, I was just in the Burlington airport yesterday, and when you walk through and you see them and they are curvy and cute, they people want to know more about them and they want to ask about them. And kids think they look fun. They're like, "Ooh, can I go inside of that?"
Absolutely. And the big ones, dad can join, or the partner can join the mom and the whole family. There's room in there. And we call them, like bosom buddies, or kind of like what your partner should be your wingman for that breastfeeding experience, right? We often see that they are downloading the app so they can help plan the trip, right? And make it go smoothly because mom is pumping or breastfeeding and doing all the other stuff. So a great thing to just see on the app itself, and we'll get reviews and feedback from like, I traveled with my wife and this was great, or I'm an engineer and this needs a tweak, of course.
So what can we do? What can be the call to action for all of us moms that want to see more of these in the ski resorts? Do we go marching in somewhere? Are we contacting a specific area? I wouldn't even know where to start if I wanted to advocate that I think this would be great at Sugarbush.
Absolutely. So one thing is you do not need to be breastfeeding to have that call to action. We see a lot of like, former parents who are like, I wish I had this and now I'm going to be an advocate, or frankly, Mamava started way after I was breastfeeding because I saw my sister struggling with the same things that I was dealing with, but 10 years later. So I think resorts do a great job in wanting to get feedback on their customer experience, wanting people to come back. When they send you those surveys, type it in. Ask for it. Don't be shy about it. Obviously, share mamava.com as a resource for validating the need. And we are always happy to connect with folks to share more about it and what kind of solutions that they might be needing to think about, and being very, very consultative that way. And I think the other thing is just remembering that employees have now protections under the law. So that's another little thing you could ask, like, what do people who are actually operating or doing for lactation accommodations? Because sometimes compliance can be a bigger driver than customer experience.
Sad but true. I mean, our dream vision is, mom pulls up in her car. Maybe she's a single mom, maybe her partner is not available to ski with that day, and somebody helps her unload, and maybe there's, designated parking area for somebody with small children. And then she's got, childcare maybe for her young one, and maybe she's got, one that's getting off to ski school that's timed appropriately. And somewhere along the way, somebody gave her a free coffee to keep the engine going. And then she gets a moment and she's like, "Oh, it's time to pump." And she sees your pod there and she feels so welcomed by this industry. Oh, and she probably has on Explore makes the first breastfeeding top base layer. And she's able to wear that so she can get to the milk engines easily. And, what a great way to start a day. I mean, that's what we all deserve. So she doesn't have to take, remember, I was interviewing one mom, said 10 years between her pregnancies and feeding kids because I think she had 4 kids. So huge gap. Like most of women are just going to throw in the towel and give up at that point.
I've never heard the expression milk engines. I cannot believe there's a euphemism in breastfeeding I haven't heard, but I love it. I'm going to totally steal that. Absolutely. Painting that picture of what it could be. It's like not apologetically, just like this fundamental human function that sustains life should be designed for and accommodated, not sort of an afterthought.
I love babies at mountains. I love looking at them. I'm happy to hold them. If I see them, I promise I'll give them back. But I think it humanizes the whole thing, and they're the next generation of skiers. And I love Sarah's point that if these little toddlers see the whole action and operation, they're going to want to become grown-up skiers someday. Do you have favorite trails near you in Stowe where you'd like to Nordic ski?
We actually get like passes that go. So we try to. That's another beautiful thing about cross country is that you can go to different places. So I like traps. It's just wide open and you see all sorts of newbies there and really excellent skiers ski at Ski Stowe. It's a little bit more technical, but fun with the stream and so on. But probably Traps is like my favorite because then I can also like go get a really good coffee or a beer or something. So I love that you're sort of European where you can into the lunch right into the trail, and then keep on going for the rest of the day. That's ideal for me.
Yeah. And so how would you end your perfect ski day with your après drink or snack?
So I would probably actually go to Daedalus, which is a wonderful wine bar in Stowe, and they have the raclette, which, that's the other thing. After burning a lot of calories in cross-country skiing, you can really go to town on your après food order. So that's like my happy place, a little like Sancerre wine and some raclette over potatoes. That would be the dream.
We're sold. Sascha, thank you so much for the work you're doing, and we will list resources in the show notes. We can all add that to our customer surveys, and I think, no mama's left behind when it comes to skiing and riding. Don't forget what it felt like to be back in the trenches, even when your kids are independent and off to college. We've got to be there for the next generation of ski moms to make sure that our sport thrives.
Thank you. You're doing a great job, and you're giving me all sorts of great ideas about how we can do better in this category of resorts.
Hey, ski moms, we hope you enjoyed today's episode and got some great tips for your next family ski adventure. If you had as much fun listening as we did making this episode, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on our latest episodes. And don't forget to rate and review us. Your feedback helps us bring you more of the content you love and helps other ski moms find our podcast. Plus, we love hearing from you. So whether you're on the slopes or just dreaming of your next snowy getaway, stay connected with us. Follow us on social media, share your favorite episodes with your friends, and let's keep this awesome community growing. Ski season may be wrapping up, but it's the perfect time to shift gears from powder days to patio days with Patio Place at Ski Haus. With 3 locations in Salem, New Hampshire, where you can shop tax-free, Woburn and Framingham, Massachusetts, Patio Place at Ski Haus is your one-stop shop for everything you need to transform your outdoor space. From premium patio sets and umbrellas to fire pits and accessories, they've got your summer setup covered. Shop online, then swing by to test it, feel it, and get expert advice from the pros. Your dream backyard starts here, and every order is placed in store. Whether you're hosting neighborhood barbecues or just soaking up sunshine with your morning coffee, the Patio Place at Ski Haus helps you make the most of outdoor living. Stop by Salem, Woburn, or Framingham and head to skihaus.com. That's skihaus.com to check store hours and get exact locations.